Okay, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to a Sunday edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Venture Clinic, Hoodco Roofing, hoodcoroofing.com, Restored Motions, restoredmotions.com, ProChargeEV, ProChargeEV.com. All right, LSU loses 42-28. Dog it, man. You know, the huge bummer of that is Bama was totally gettable. It was a year where they were totally gettable, and you couldn't get the job done because your defense is just the worst ever. It's just the worst ever. You don't need to be great. I mean, I don't know how many times I've told, I don't know how many times we've had this convo, but you don't need to be great on defense. You don't need to be a great defensive football team in 2023. You don't have to be a top 5, top 10 defense to win a national championship. You just can't be the worst defense ever. And this is the worst defense ever. I mean, almost impossibly worse than that Pelini defense in 2020. I mean, we'll see when the season ends what all the statistics say, but I mean, it's so disappointing, man. I put this one up with 2014. 2014 was a year where Bama had Blake Sims at quarterback. That was the game in Baton Rouge where, you had the game won, you lost it in overtime. You gave away the 2-minute drive late and lost it in overtime. And that was a gettable Bama team. That wasn't one of their best. And you really had your opportunity to win it, and you let it get away. And that's what last night felt like. Amazing job with 1:01 left at the end of the first half to go get the touchdown. Beautiful play by Kyron Lacey to get in the end zone. You got the ball to start the second half, did exactly what you needed to do. You went down and scored a touchdown. And so now everything flipped in your favor. Now they were playing catch up, and you had to be nearly flawless on offense. You're up 28-21. Of course, they went down and scored. Man, on that possession, you really had your opportunity to get your takeaway. Because you're up 28-21, their first possession of the second half, Milroe threw a ball down the left sideline that was into double coverage, and Sage Ryan and Andre Sam were there. And if either one of them, they got the receiver bracketed, if either one of them just plays the ball, it's an interception, and you steal a possession. Maybe you go up 2 scores, and at that point, everything's in your favor. But you missed the opportunity. Of course, they would score to tie it, and then the next possession was the Mason Taylor drop, and that's where it felt like the whole game changed. You had 2nd and 17 after Will Campbell's holding. Jayden had the long run. The long run, it got negated because of Will Campbell's holding. You had 2nd and 17. Jayden bought time. He found Mason Taylor over the middle. Would have set up 3rd and manageable, 3rd and 5 or less, and Taylor dropped it. So you punt, they scored, now they're up. And now you got to answer. And, this was just the sequence that killed you. You throw the interception on the tip ball, and, of course, they would go score. Now they're up 14. And it's over, really, at this point. But then the first play of the next drive is when Dallas Turner did what dirty Dallas Turner does, and cheap shot of Jayden Daniels knocked him out of the game. And at that point, it really was over. We'll get to your comments and stuff, but I do want to talk about the hit. It was flagged for personal foul. And I want to remind, and this is Dallas Turner has a history of this. He did the same thing to Quinn Ewers last year, knocked him out of the Bama-Texas game. If you remember last year when Alabama played Ole Miss was trying to make their late run to go win the game. Dallas turned a cheap shot at Jackson Dart. This is what he does. Dallas Turner's a great player. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. He's a great player, but he is a dirty player. In the same way that Ndamukong Suh is a great player, but also a dirty player. And in a different era of football, you might have been able to look at that play and put it on a highlight reel. And if this were that era of football, then you celebrate that hit, but it's not. And every player and every fan and every person watching football knows what is legal, what is not. Dallas Turner knew in that moment what he was doing was not a legal hit, but he did it anyway because that's what he does. So it's a shame, man. I got to meet Dallas Turner at SEC Media Days and was maybe my favorite interview. Engaging young guy. I think he's going to, be a high first-round draft pick and going to make a lot of money, and I think have a long pro career. Doesn't make him any less dirty of a player, which he is. So, and here's the highlights on SportsCenter right now. So, look, LSU didn't lose the game because of the Dallas Turner hit. That is just a very frustrating punctuation. And I hope it doesn't cost Jayden next week or anything in the future, the season. But you lost this game because you played coverage and did pretty well, and you just left running lanes open for Jalen Milroe. And Milroe ended up running 20 times for 155 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's so interesting how similar the quarterback statistics were. Jayden was 15 of 24 for 219. Jalen was 15 of 23 for 219. Running, Daniels ran for 163. Milroe ran for 158. I mean, the game was almost identical. I mean, you put up 478. They put up 507. And that was really, obviously, LSU didn't, Nussmeier played, your last 2 possessions in the fourth quarter. So, then you didn't move the ball at all. So, had you had Jayden in there, you might even beat him on the yardstick. But, you did look again. I'll get to your comments here in a second, but you didn't lose the game because of Dallas Turner's hit. It was a dirty hit, and it's frustrating. And it's even more annoying that. Let me finish that thought, and then I'll come back to the hit. You didn't lose the game because of Dallas Turner's hit. You lost the game because your defense is just the worst ever. And Bama was gettable, and you just needed to have a pulse defensively, and you didn't. So, I know a lot of y'all are going to ask about targeting on that hit. So Brian Kelly said after the game he was told they did review it and would just determine it wasn't targeting. This is my inherent problem with targeting, okay? I think we can all appreciate the intent of the rule. The intent of the rule is to eliminate dangerous plays from the game, right? I think we can all agree. There's nothing wrong with eliminating dangerous plays. Football is a collision sport. There is risk, and guys get hurt, and you accept that risk when you play, and we all understand that. We want everybody to be healthy and to be safe, but there's risk involved, and we all know it, and everybody knows it. But if there's a way that you could legislate dangerous hits out of the play, you try to do it. So the spirit of the rule with targeting, I think we're all on board with. The problem is, by definition of the rule, too often guys are flagged and kicked out of games for plays that are benign. Like you're going to make a tackle, a runner ducks, and so you hit him on the head and you're ejected. Like, that's the kind of thing that's nauseating. So when you see a play like the Dallas Turner hit on Jayden Daniels that is so obviously intentional and high, and he launches, and it's forcible contact to the head or neck area, and he drives him into the ground. It's all the things that should be textbook targeting, and you tell me you review it and you don't eject that player. But we see these benign hits throughout the season where guys are ejected for things that are menial. That's the thing that's the hardest to wrap your head around. Like, at that point, the game was over. LSU was down 14. It didn't matter. Like, again, you weren't coming back because you couldn't get a stop. So I'm not saying that's what cost LSU the game. I'm just saying it's massively frustrating given the targeting rule what it is, and a play like that isn't flagged for targeting. Anyway. Okay, y'all do me a favor. Please smash the like button if you're on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Facebook, please like the Matt Scone page, share the post. Show is always brought to you by Brock, Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. If you would, I know I've asked y'all this before. I've got the Hudco Google review pinned. If I explained this to y'all before, but about a month ago or so, Google split the Hudco North and Hudco South offices on Google. So like all of the reviews went to Google North, went to Hudco North, which is great. But the Hudco South office in Baton Rouge had literally went to 0. So, I mean, if you appreciate the show, if I ever give you any value or anything like that, you could do me a solid. I would just appreciate you clicking on the link. Take 5 seconds and just leave a 5-star review. That would be awesome. Okay, Lewoski Watkins, good morning. Missed tackles, drop passes, snap infractions. Penalties were a thing. I don't even know that. Look, the Mason Taylor drop was significant, but missed tackles, bad run fits, not being disciplined in your run lanes. I mean, you just, you let Jalen Milroe beat you with his feet. He didn't beat you with his arm. He had a couple of open receivers he missed, but they were 11 of 14 on third down. Alabama, I'll say it again. Alabama was 11 of 14 on third down. You just could not get off the floor. Third and 7, they completed 11-yard pass. First drive, you got the sack on 3rd and 6. But then, let's see, their second drive, they didn't face a third down. Third and 3, they get a 6-yard run. 3rd and 1, Milroe's 23-yard touchdown around left end. 3rd and 8, you have a bust where they dump it off to the running back. It goes 42 yards. 3rd and 7, you get a TFL. They missed a field goal. So both of your stops came in the first half. And we've talked about this so much, y'all. I needed 2 stops a half. If you figure 10 possessions a game, give me 2 stops a half. 2 stops a half. And you got off the field twice. The first drive of the game, you got the sack, and then they had the missed field goal. You got 2 stops. And you went to half tied. And in the second half, you got 0 stops. None. They scored a touchdown on every possession until the last one, which ended the game. 3rd and 3, they threw the wheel route for 35 yards. 3rd and 11, Jalen Milroe ran for 11 yards. 3rd and 9, Milroe ran for a touchdown. 3rd and 1, they ran it for 10 yards. 3rd and 10, Milroe ran for 18 yards. That was when Womack was in at defensive end. I mean, this was the point of the game about third quarter. So you score to start the third quarter. It's 28-21. They get the ball. They get a first down there at midfield. The first play was where you missed the possible interception down the left sideline when you had a double coverage. Second down, Savion Jones batted the ball at the line of scrimmage, so it's 3rd and 10. So you're up 7. They got 3rd and 10. You're about to get the ball back. They put Deshaun Womack in at right end, or at jack, I guess, and he lost contain, and Milroe ran for 18 yards, and 3 plays later they were in the end zone. Defense, bro. So hard to watch. After the interception, 3rd and 5 at the 20-yard line, you're off the field. They actually ran a design run with Milroe, and a design run. The design runs with Milroe, you actually did pretty well. And Perkins grabbed his horse collar. you'd have been off the field allowing just a field goal there. You know what? I was wrong. I said you got no stops. They missed a second field goal in the game. So you did get a stop in the second half when they missed a field goal. Anyway. Darren Mayer, good morning. Hard not to be discouraged when the only SEC team LSU's beaten with a winning record is Missouri. And Missouri's a good team, man. Missouri gave Georgia everything they wanted. You know, it's a shame. The similarities with 2013 are pretty stark, right? You're just looking at a team that has a great offense good enough to beat anybody. An offense good enough to score on or beat anybody. You just need your defense to be good enough, and they're not. They're just atrocious. Apollo Balboa 1985 Outback or Peach Bowl. So the best you could hope for right now is to win out and go 9-3. And if you win out and you go 9-3, then you have a chance, like you did in 2018, to grab a New Year's 6 spot. A lot has to happen, for that to happen. But you could go 9-3 and end up in the New Year's 6, which would likely either be the peach or the cotton, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure the bowl. The rose, because the rose and the sugar are the semis this year. Peach or cotton. If you're able to snag an at-large New Year's 6 slot, peach or cotton would be likely. If you get it. If not, you could be back in the citrus, or it's not the Outback anymore. It's called the ReliaQuest Bowl now. But that's the one down in Tampa. D-line, no pressure. Spate's not aggressive, whereas Weeks, freshman corners, not as bad as Sage Ryan. Wendell Norman, Lars Corville, Go Real, Aaron Hornsby, Tiger Diver, what up? I mean, that's one of the things, we talked about all week was, everyone wanted to ask about everybody wanted to ask about the player, Zy Alexander being out. And I said all week it didn't matter. I mean, your defense wasn't good with him. It's just that you're still going to be bad. I mean, the drop off wasn't even terrible. Unenviable spot for those young guys having to run it there and play, but Sage Ryan's not a boundary corner. He's playing there sort of out of necessity. Randy Dabdoob, 2 weeks to game plan, and that's the defense you put on the field. I mean, are we surprised, Randy? I don't know how anybody's surprised by that. That's, we knew that if LSU was going to win this game, there was going to have to be a game like we saw against Arkansas, Ole Miss, Missouri. Just, you're going to have to go outscore them. And your offense just has to be flawless. And they weren't. They made a couple of mistakes in the second half, and it'll cost you. Scott Beckham, William Hodges, is Matt House done after this year? Yeah. I mean, that's a ton of people asked that last night on Whiskey and Wine. And I mean, of course he is. And I'm not sitting here saying fire the coach. And I understand there's it's a man with a family and, kids in school and all the stuff that go along with that. So I'm not sitting here trying to be insensitive to that, but it's the nature of the job when you get into coaching. I mean, a lot of times coaches are hired to be fired. And when you make $2 million, there's an expectation and a standard you have to meet, and that's not being met. I mean, they're atrocious. I mean, you don't get to, even with the personnel issues, the misses in the portal, the roster turnover from Ogeron, all the things we've talked about, there's no excuse to be the worst defense in the league. I'm not saying you have to be the 85 Bears, but you can't be the worst defense ever. I mean, if you were just competent defensively, you beat Ole Miss, and you probably win last night. Hayden Presley, good morning. Mark Bayard, praying the Saints get Jayden Daniels. Any interest in Cam Rising, Star Trek into LSU? No idea, man. Chris Davenport, poor tackling is a killer. Keith DeVille, Jerry DeLucky. What up, Jerry? Good morning. Good to see you last night, man. Electric atmosphere at Don Juan, at least for the first 2.5 quarters. Yeah. Charlie Gale, good morning. What a brutal loss. Felt like Florida State all over again. Very, very similar. And those games track, right? I mean, your offense is really good, but they have to be perfect. And when you're not, it's hard to beat a good team. Mark Populus, TK Brown, Todd Harris, Ryan Dixon. What does Brian Kelly have to do? Sorry, I lost it. The comments refreshed, Ryan. Sorry, I'm trying to find it again. Oh God, it scrolled off. I'm sorry. Missy Martin, our momentum left when we had the turnover and the hit was horrible. Thad Landry, Michael Deneau, Bubba Smith, Matt French. Horse collar happened 3 separate times, only flagged once. They did miss a horse collar on Jayden on one of his long runs. They called the one on Harold Perkins, which was a horse collar. I mean, you can't grab inside the shoulder pads, by the nameplate. You gotta get your hand out of there. I don't know what was the third one. I mean, those are the two I remember. They pulled Jayden down on one and didn't call it. And they called the one on Perkins. Kenny Doran, can the NCAA re-review the hit? No. I mean, Kenny, they flagged it and they reviewed it. I mean, said it wasn't targeting. Chase Pellegrin defense is terrible. Too many drops, just like we did against Florida State. Mason Smith, Wino Weeks. The Whit Weeks thing is interesting. I know everybody wants Whit Weeks out there, and I think he's a great player. And we got to see him play. He was a leading tackler and played really well. They like Spates and Penn, just two veteran guys. And my assumption here is you're talking about a similar situation what happened back with DJ Welter and Kendall Beckwith. They would have been in 20. I guess it was 14, and eventually in 14, I think Beckwith took over. But Welter was your middle linebacker who was a good player and was a smart player, knew his job and knew where everybody lined up, and was a communicator, and you needed that veteran presence. But Kendall Beckwith was a future NFL first round pick. Beckwith only wasn't a first rounder because he tore his ACL in the Florida game in 2016. And eventually you got to the point where it's like you can't justify keeping the more talented player on the sideline. So eventually they made that switch. That's probably what it is now. They want the more veteran guy on the field on what's already a young defense that doesn't communicate very well. But I don't know if Whit Weeks plays if the game's dramatically different. Todd Harris, this team was a complete dumpster fire after Coach O left. I can't jump off the ship after a season and a half of rebuilding. I do believe huge changes have to be made to get this defense fixed for next season. Todd, that goes without saying, man. There will be major changes to your defensive staff. I think not only Matt House, but you're going to look at Kerry Cooks and Robert Steeples in the secondary. House also works with your linebackers. So, do you bring in a separate linebackers coach? I don't know. But it's obvious you will have major defensive staff changes, and you're going to have to look at your personnel, man. Somebody asked post game last night. Somebody asked post game last night. What was I going to say? I forgot. So I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. Let's see. I'll go to the bottom and scroll my way back up on YouTube. Tony Dolby, good morning. Jeremy Caron. Matt, stop using excuses. Jerry, please tell me what excuses I've used here. I said LSU's defense is literally the worst ever. What are you talking about? Like, just said you can't beat a good team when your defense is awful. Bama was gettable. They were. LSU is a terrible defense. And offense played well. And, Mason Taylor had a drop. The margin for error offensively is 0. Mason had a drop, and then the deflected pass led to the interception, which is a great play by Turner. And at that point, it was over. I don't know how many more ways I can say it. Like, you didn't lose the game because of the Dallas Turner hit. Dallas Turner's just a dirty player. Drake Knapp said Bama is not dirty. Stop your crying. I'm not crying, Drake. But Dallas Turner is a dirty player. He's got a history of this. He did the same thing to Quinn Ewers last year. He did the same thing to Jackson Dart last year against Ole Miss. That was a dirty play. In the year 2023, that is a hit that everybody knows is illegal. He hit Jayden Daniels in the head with the crown of his helmet. He wrapped him and entire body weight fell on him. That's a dirty play. It's dirty. He is a dirty player. He's a great player. But he's like Ndamukong Suh, great player who is a dirty player. So, I'm guessing you're a Bama guy, and that's fine. I expect you to go to bat for your guy. But if this was 20 years ago, that's a beautiful hit. That's on every highlight video, and it's celebrated. It's not 20 years ago. When you're actively trying to legislate those hits out of the game, and this player continues to do them, he's dirty. He's a dirty player. He is intentionally trying to hurt people, and that's a shame. Father J.D. Mathern, Corey Raymond, possible to come back? Yes, I think I'm comfortable saying that there is that if that job is open, that Corey Raymond will be a name of interest. Yes. Who would you choose as our next DC? Jim Leonard. Jim Leonard's defenses at Wisconsin have been awesome. Go get him. Hollywood, pro-style pocket quarterbacks are not a recipe for success in the SEC. You're going to have to elaborate a little bit because, Jayden Daniels is a sensational runner. The reason he's catapulted this year is his ability within the pocket. Joe Burrow is the best quarterback we've ever seen, and he's technically a pro-style pocket quarterback. So I don't know what you're talking about. Make defense great again. The defensive line was supposed to be good this year. To see them play so bad, can't tackle, no pass rush, don't run fit, sucks. You're right, it does. Gulf South, Andrew Scott, Ryan Clark would have our defense fired up. Ryan Clark would coach the secondary better than they're being coached right now. Matt Plavid, Alabama's dirty. Been playing that way since Saban arrived. You can go back to the Marcel Darius hit on Colt McCoy in the national championship game back in 2009. It is a thing that they do, and part of it is you could say it's physicality. It's instilling fear in opponents, setting the tone, all that stuff. But it's definitely part of what they do defensively. Andy Whitaker, but what DC is average or good with these players, the players just aren't good. There's truth to that, Andy. But there's a big difference between what LSU here's an example. What LSU did to Army. Offensively, LSU hung 62 on Army, and Army had no shot. They physically just couldn't run with, tackle, keep up with the LSU offense, right? The gap with LSU's talent, say like the Ole Miss game, that's a good example, or even the Arkansas game, isn't such that you should be giving up 700 yards to Ole Miss and 500 yards to Arkansas. Your talent isn't that bad. but you have routinely missed tackles, coverage busts, and all of those things continue to compound. So that's where, Andy, you're missing it, because while you don't have a Derek Stingley at corner or a Grant Delpit at safety, or you know, I mean, heck, look at LSU's national championship in 2019. I mean, Rashard Lawrence was a really good defensive lineman. He wasn't Glenn Dorsey. You know, Braden Fehoko, really good player. I mean, he wasn't Drake Davis. You're talking about All-Americans, but dudes that played within their system, played hard, and played well. You can maximize players like that. And there's enough talent. Like the fact that you're not maximizing Harold Perkins and Mason Smith and Jordan Jefferson, Greg Penn, Savion Jones. I mean, you have talent, man. You have talent on this defense. It's not, I'm not telling you that you've got the best talent you've ever had, but you have enough players that you shouldn't be this bad. Cliff Nelson. Cliff was all over. Cliff don't like Greg Penn on the field on third down. Cliff, come on, bro. I love you, dude, but Cliff was all over Greg Penn being on the field on third down. Cliff, I'm not disagreeing with you, man. Yeah, but that ain't the reason that Bama converted 11 to 14. I mean, geez. Enjoy your lemon cookies, Cliff. Love you, my dude. Every third down last night, Cliff's yelling, "Why is Greg Penn on the field?" Oh, my guy was on one every time he saw Greg Penn on the field. Oh, man. Hey, Cliff, at least I got to laugh this morning a little bit, man. God, dog. Y'all do me a favor. Please smash that like button. 325 watching. Appreciate y'all being there live. Subscribe up to the channel if you're new. We appreciate y'all for being there. Clinton Becknell, give us someone you want to see as defensive coordinator. Jim Leonard. Just incredible. Mekhi Wingo is by far LSU's defensive lineman. Mason Smith needs some milk. You know, Justin, the thing about Mason or Mekhi is, you know, Mekhi was playing hurt all year, man, and it was evident he didn't look like himself this year. Ask yourself this, and this is not a knock on Mekhi. I think he's great. How many times this year have you seen a game where you saw Mekhi Wingo make a play? Like, can you call to mind right now a time where you saw Mekhi Wingo make a play? You know, it's just, he's been playing hurt all year, man. That doesn't excuse the lack of production from Mason Smith. That's not what I'm saying. But anyway, Melanie McGavran, road games at night with big crowds have killed us the last 2 seasons. Yeah, I mean, Melanie, it's hard to play on the road in front of lit crowds. Rob Sens, LSU defense cost Jayden the Heisman. Yeah. I mean, if your defense had a pulse, you beat Ole Miss, and you probably win last night, or you have a better chance to win. Say it that way. But if your defense had a pulse, you certainly beat Ole Miss. I mean, you put up 45 points and 600 yards. Like, you should never lose that game. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that, Rob. Andrew Scott, our players couldn't see the edge. That was the problem. That's on coaching. Tanner Anderson. Dame 26, Matt, I don't think the corners were the problem last night. No, I agree. That's kind of the point, Dame. Like, Joshua Johnson, $100 million wasted. It ain't your $100 million. What do you care? I always laugh at it. It's no disrespect to you, Joshua, but I always laugh when people bring up coaches' salaries. Like, it ain't your money. I mean, ain't a dime came from you. That's all private donor money through TAF. And a dime from you, from the state of Louisiana, why you care? It ain't your money, bro. The person who should be pissed are the people who went and paid $17 million to fund Orgeron's buyout and then paid $100 million. But even still, man, I ain't giving up on Brian Kelly. I think Brian Kelly will win a national championship here. I mean, I'll remind you, Ed Orgeron's first year here, they lost to Troy, got blown out by Mississippi State. You know, his second season, they got shut out by Alabama with Joe Burrow at quarterback in Tiger Stadium. You know, and by year 3, they had the pieces together and they won it all. So, I mean, if you're bailing now, that feels like a fool's errand. But anyway, Thomas, Matt, doesn't it feel like we're further away from a natty than even next year? The SEC was bad this year, bad. Thomas, let me just reiterate what I just said. In 2018, you were 9-3, which you have a chance to be now. You got shut out at home by Alabama. Your offense was not very good in 2018. It was very pedestrian. You remember in 2018, Joe Burrow went the entire month of October. When I say this out loud, people are like, is that right? In 2018, Joe Burrow went the entire month of October without throwing a touchdown pass. You lost at Florida, where Burrow threw the pick 6 at the end. You got shut out by Bama, and you lost the A&M game in overtime. It's difference is you had Dave Aranda as your defensive coordinator, and Burrow got better year to year. So, Jerry Rivera, good morning. How can I get a Hudco hat? He changes on the defense coaching side. Jerry, if you're in Baton Rouge, you can always swing by the Hudco office on Perkins Road. Get tons of hats. Happy to give anybody a hat. You swing by the office it's on the business. This isn't like the Yard or anything like that. It's the business office that's on Perkins, right near Perkins Road. Just swing on in, man. Swing on in, knock on the door, ask if you can have a Hudco hat. Yeah. Dylan said Devin White was ejected for targeting after pushing the quarterback against A&M in 2018. It wasn't A&M, it was Mississippi State. But that's an illustration of the point. Like, by definition, right, by the letter of the law, what Devin White did in 2018 was targeting. It was forcible contact to the head or neck area. He rushed the quarterback and he hit the quarterback in the head. By definition, right? So that's the disconnect. How can something like that be flagged, reviewed for targeting, and what you saw last night with Dallas Turner not? That's the problem. That's the gigantic issue. Anyway. Wow. Man, comments are rolling. I appreciate y'all for being here. Do me a favor if you would, smash that like button. And if you're new, would love it if you'd subscribe up to the channel. As always, shout out to Brock. After Hours Clinic open nights and weekends, alternative to the ER. Of course, Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Love to give you a free, no obligation roofing inspection. Appreciate y'all. And the link I have pinned, by the way, in the chat is the Hudco Google review. I've asked you before, but if you could take a quick second, it would be a huge, huge favor if when we're done or whenever you just click that link, take 5 seconds, just hit review, leave just 5-star Google review. That would be awesome. I'd appreciate it so much. Tony Dolby, Henry Price, even Bama fans say Turner is a dirty player. I mean, Dallas Turner is a dirty player. Like, he's got a history of doing this. Like we said, like he did the same thing to Quinn Ewers last year at Texas. He He go back if you don't remember, go back and watch the end of the Ole Miss game last year where he hit Jackson Dart and then like shoved his face in the ground late. I mean, the refs didn't catch it. Lane Kiffin went ballistic. That was when Ole Miss was trying to make the drive to go win the game last year. Anyway, just that's what he's a you can call it aggressive, you can call it physical, whatever you want, but it's one of those things where if he's on your team, you probably love it. He's Ndamukong Suh. He's a very physical, aggressive player. He's a great player, but he's a dirty player. Matthew Gardner, how Brian Kelly's defense is at Notre Dame. Matthew, honestly, mostly really good. I mean, he had a great run of defensive coordinators from Bob Diaco, who, as a result of that, got a head coaching job at UConn. Bob Diaco's on staff now. Mike Elko, who went to Notre Dame and is now the head coach at Duke and doing an awesome job. Marcus Freeman, the one miss that he had was Brian Van Gorder. You know, if you remember Brian Van Gorder, who was the old Atlanta Falcons head coach, he hired him to be the DC, and that was terrible, and he quickly fired him. I think after he fired him is when he brought in Elko. Tony Dolby, we did talk about this in the beginning of the year about the defense. I mean, Tony was, whenever we went out to fall camp, and if anybody has any interest, I don't know that you actually do, but you can go back to any of my camp reports or anybody's. And the very, very consistent reports were the receivers were dominating the LSU secondary. Like the offense was dominating the defense. Now we see, man, the offense is great, but it was all obviously also just very obvious that defensively you were not good. And that's why before the season started, I went and looked up all the national champions during the playoff era and where their pass defense finished. And we did that whole segment. And the interesting thing is that I think there was only 2 in the playoff era that were top 15 in pass defense. And the point being, like, you don't have to be great. You just can't be the worst. And LSU is just the worst. So, Gulf South, Glenn Crowdis, tired of losing to Saban. It's exhausting and ruins my weekend. Jennifer Giovingo. What do you think the reaction would have been if Mason Smith had hit Milroe the way Jayden was hit? I think he would have been flagged for personal foul. Depending on the nature of it, would have been targeting. And if he had knocked Milroe out of the game, I think Alabama fans would be really upset. Stevie Wonder. Aaron Hornsby, Stephen Gilbo. How do you think Spates played? Stephen, I don't think Spates or anybody played well defensively. I can't tell you that I thought a single player played really well. I mean, my thoughts on the game defensively when I think about plays are misses, other than Perkins getting the sack on the first possession, Savion Jones batting the ball at the line of scrimmage. And the other thing that's such a bummer is, like, the thing we were concerned with Jalen Milroe was his ability to hit the deep ball, and he didn't. Their 2 long pass plays were both dump offs to the running backs that went for 42 and 35 yards. They ran a wheel route that went for 35 yards on 3rd and 3. And on 3rd and 8 was a busted play where Milroe looked like you were going to sack him, and then he just sort of like knuckleballed, the pass over the line to the running back who went for 42 yards. I mean, those were the 2 longest plays of the game. So you took away his deep ball. Now, he did have the one open up to Isaiah Bond at the end of the first half in the left corner of the end zone, if you remember, where Bond looked behind him and was like, hey, nobody there. He put his hands on his head. So Milroe missed. He had the tight end open on the right side. So Milroe had a couple of deep shots open that he missed. But other than that, Like the thing that we were concerned about with Milroe, the deep ball didn't hurt you. What hurt you was your inability to stop him from running on busted plays. You know, his runs weren't designed running plays. They were your inability to contain. LSU fan, at least Ole Miss ain't winning the West. Yeah, I mean, Bama's got the head-to-head, so if Bama wins out, they go. Drake Nat and Ole Miss has to play at Georgia next week. If Perkins had done the same thing to Milroe, you'd say it was good football play. Okay, Drake. Okay. All right. We'll see you later. We'll see you later. So clearly he's a troll. We'll see you later. Have a good day. Phil Stevens, good morning, Matt. Hope Jayden is okay. Yes, it came with bad intentions. Ryan Combs, the offense holding on Jayden scramble and Taylor's drop. The drive was turning the game. No doubt. It was the third quarter after they scored tied. After they scored to tie it at 28. LSU had the ball. You had a 2nd and 7. After you got a first down, let's see, 8, 9, you're at the 32-yard line. They threw short pass to Mason for 3 yards. You had 2nd and 7, and Jayden took off for a 40-yard run down the right side. That got negated for holding. And instead of being right back and deep in their territory and rolling again, you had 2nd and 17, and that's where Mason Taylor dropped the pass. So that is where it turned. I think I used this analogy for something during the Ole Miss game. It might have been a drop. Might have been a drop or maybe one of their conversions where, have you ever seen the movie The Big Lebowski? I love The Big Lebowski. I know it's an older movie. It's 98, 25 years ago, but I love The Big Lebowski. But the movie's old enough. I'll give you a spoiler because if you haven't seen it, it's been 25 years. At the end of the movie, Donnie's bowling, and Donnie, like, always rolls a strike. Well, he bowls and he hits the head pin and he knocks 9 down and the 10th pin is wobbling and then it stands and they do this close-up shot on him, like, and right there was like the seminal turning point, like things were about to get really bad. And spoiler alert, Donnie ends up dying that night. And that's what it felt like when Mason Taylor dropped the ball. You're tied 28-28. You're still feeling like they can't stop you. And even though it's 2nd and 17 felt doable, and whenever Mason Taylor dropped the ball, it was like, oh no. And you punted, and they took the lead and never gave it up. Jeremy Lane, please hire Ryan Clark, see what happens. Jeremy, I'm not telling you, listen, first of all, they're not going to hire Ryan Clark. And I'm not telling you they should, by the way. Because when you're, do I think Ryan could coach LSU secondary? Yes, I do. A lot of people don't know this. I think you're kind of laughing a little bit, Jeremy, but Ryan trains NFL defensive backs in the offseason attraction. There are DBs that come from all over the league to Baton Rouge to go train with him in the offseason. So could he coach defensive backs? Yes, he could. But being a full-time assistant at a place like LSU entails so much more than just showing up to practice to go over drills and stuff, right? I mean, there's recruiting and there's meeting. It's just it's your whole life. So I don't think that would happen. And I don't think that LSU would, or Brian Kelly would do that. So I think that's a total non-starter. But if you're laughing because you don't think he could coach defensive backs, then the joke's on you. Because I literally go work out at Traction, and there are DBs from not just dudes that played at LSU, like from all over the NFL who come to Baton Rouge, who stay here during the offseason to train with him. So, Clinton Becknell, our offense has no dogs. Daniel Bryant, Tony Dolby, let's see. Henry Price Taylor wasn't the only one that dropped balls. I mean, Malik dropped one at the end of the game when it was over. Ended up being like LSU's last offensive play. I didn't chart another drop, man. I mean, y'all tell me if I'm wrong, but the only drop I charted was Mason Taylor's, and then the Malik one at the end of the game. Bill Frere, can the SEC suspend Turner? No, they're not gonna. Just incredible. Thank you for this platform, Matt. I can talk crap when LSU wins, and I can vent when they lose. Appreciate you for being here, man. All right. Bo Jax, let's not grab fifth-year seniors out of the portal, please. Except, I mean, Bo Jax, that worked last year. You know, a year ago, you getting a guy like Jark Bernard Converse was crucial for your defense. You're getting Mekhi Gardner, who wasn't a fifth-year player, but was a veteran player. He became a really good starter for you and made an NFL roster. I mean, it worked last year. It didn't work this year. You just missed. What you need to have happen is the guys that you're recruiting out of high school to grow and develop and get better and become good starting players. And then you need to be able to supplement out of the portal. For example, LSU tried to get Fentrell Cypress out of Virginia this year. He picked Florida State. If you had gotten that guy, he'd be your number one cornerback. And he's not having a great year at Florida State, but he'd still be dramatically better than anyone you have at that position on your roster. So, anyway, just something to keep in mind. You know, like, you can't just look at the portal and say, don't ever do that again, because when it works, it's great. But just like recruiting out of the high school ranks, it's not a 100% proposition. I mean, you're not always going to hit on every player. Phil Stevens, every time I heard the word physicality now, I'll think of as Deion Sanders, aka Coach Prime. Gorilla Town, possibility Aranda comes back. Well, I don't know. So just to be very, very clear, I don't know. You know, when they won when they won the Big 12 and they went 12-2 back in 21, just 2 years ago, Aranda got a new contract through the 2029 season. So Baylor's a private school, so we don't know the details of it, but he's under contract there through 2029. I mean, 2 years after giving him a new deal, are they gonna jump ship? I don't know that I believe that, but I mean, look, they're having obviously a really, really tough year. After going 12-2 and winning the Sugar Bowl, last year they went 6-7. They were 6-6 and lost the bowl game, and right now they're 3-6. So, I mean, here's what I do know. Here's what I know for sure. Dave Aranda and his family loved Baton Rouge. When he had the opportunity to take the A&M job, the primary reason he didn't is because his family didn't want to leave. His wife had a lot of friends here, and their daughters loved it here too. So, now, number one, I don't know if Baylor's going to fire Dave Aranda. And number two, if he did, does he want to be a DC again? And number three, even if he did get fired, was okay being a DC again, does Brian Kelly want to hire? I don't know. So there's a lot of moving parts there. Tez a fool with it. Why don't we put Chestnut being he was an older guy? Chestnut's not with the team right now, man. Chestnut and Denver Harris are both not with the team. Let's see. Daniels could have reached 300 passing, 200 rushing. Yeah. If he played the fourth quarter, he probably would have, yeah. Guy Brooks. K. Gill, Bama line number 77 had the worst personal foul in the game, launching himself in the air to land on Mason Smith's back after he attempted a tackle. Go watch the film. Darren, six killer. This seems ludicrous, but we're just asking the defense to hold the points to 28 points per game or less. Andrew Scott, just incredible. Tremaine 318. Thank you, Phil Steele and Mike Gundy. Saved my weekend. Going to the casino to cash this winning Oklahoma State ticket. Yeah. What a great day yesterday for Phil's picks. I'm trying to think overall how we did. Anyway, y'all know my rule. I don't play LSU games, but I did play the over in the LSU Bama, which was 61. I couldn't believe it. Was like, what does Vegas do? I mean, even with Jayden not playing the fourth quarter, the over still hit. I mean, anyway. Alex Mangrum, good morning. Tony said, I don't think Matt House is a bad DC. I think he needs to simplify the defense. Brother, I don't know that there could be a more simplified defense of what LSU is doing. The biggest problem you have is when you try to play coverage, you have a lot of problems. In the secondary, the biggest problem you have is when you try to play coverage, your guys are rarely in position. Although I think they were better last night. It's why you didn't give up big plays deep. And you were really not running any exotic looks up front. You're just not making plays, brother. Bad part is Alabama's O-line ain't going nowhere. All them boys are underclassed. Well, that's not true. I mean, J.C. Latham is a projected first-round pick. I mean, LSU's offensive line, all five could come back, and you ran the ball really well last night. And Bama's offensive line has been an Achilles heel this year. Again, like, it wasn't like Alabama's offensive line was blowing you off the ball and creating these giant holes that they were running through against an 8-man box. LSU was playing coverage to not give up the deep ball, and Jalen Milroe was able to just scramble because he's a dynamic runner. So, I mean, tip your cap to that guy. But that wasn't Alabama's offensive line dominating the line of scrimmage. That was nobody could run with Jalen Milroe. All right. If you're new, please smash that like button. Subscribe up to the channel. We appreciate y'all. Bearded Dragon, I guess next week, all the Nuss Bus fans will see what they have next year. Man, honestly, my hope is that Jayden's fine and is able to play against Florida. You know, one of the things that does get a little dicey, man, is if Jayden's not available to play next week. I know Florida's not very good, but Florida offensively got going against Vanderbilt and South Carolina, which are two of the worst defenses in the league. Well, LSU's one of the worst defenses in the league. If you don't have, like, if you're feeling bad for yourself and you don't have Jayden, and I mean, then things could get dicey. Anyway. Tremaine, Russ Mitchell said a Bama player would do that, and he did. And he texted me to remind me. We talked about it on Whiskey and Wine. He did. Phil Stevens, to put it politely, your cigar cast buddy is an abomination. I agree. T-Bob is an abomination. He's funny, though. Alex Castano's got to trust Brian Kelly. Said many of the D players will be back. Should he keep house for continual continuity? No. You just, because it's not like this is just a 1 year thing. I mean, your defense last year wasn't very good either. You were good at making halftime adjustments a year ago. But if you remember, LSU last year really struggled in the first half. They would make halftime adjustments and would improve in the second half. But the hope was year to year you would see defensive improvement. Instead, you've regressed. You can't, guys, look. You can't have. We've seen this twice before at LSU since I've been covering the team. 2008, the defense was an absolute atrocity. Pelini went to the NFL or went to Nebraska. They promoted Doug Mallory and Bradley Dale Pivito, and it was an absolute disaster. And after that year, they were gone. They brought in John Chavis. 2020, when they brought back Pelini, it was an absolute disaster. The worst defense in the history of the program. They allowed 35 points a game on average. It was literally the worst defensive year statistically ever. And he was gone. And you can't retain Matt House. They're not going to retain Matt House. I'm not sitting here pounding the desk saying fire the coach and all that stuff. It's just, at this point, that's an understood thing. And I'm sure Matt House knows it. Like, you don't make what you make and have the expectation you do at a place like LSU and have the worst defense in the conference. Like, you're not going to keep your job. Matt Plavidal, Matt Spates and Weeks was like the DJ Welter. Is that one? Yeah, I did the Walter Beck with example earlier. Carvis Durr, Clinton Becknell, Brennan Huff, good morning. Hey, wasting a special offense with his defense. Alex Katsanos, the Bama player, has a habit of cheap shots. Chet said, I can't believe the Chiefs and Dolphins are playing this early. That should be a night game. I mean, Chet, I don't know if you know this, but they're playing in Germany. So if they were to play at night here, that would be in the middle of the night in Germany. They'd be playing at like 4 a.m. So anyway, that's why they're playing in Germany. Tony Dolby, Trivia Carter, how come every time Notre Dame loses, we lose? There has been a weird correlation with that, hasn't it? But it's funny though. I don't care at all about Notre Dame. Whatever, good luck to them, whatever. But yes, like it's interesting that Notre Dame went on the road and got punked by Clemson. Clemson was up 24-9 at half. I mean, big win for Clemson. I mean, they responded and rallied behind their coach. Good for them. But I mean, if you're Notre Dame, again, like, I don't care about Notre Dame, like, whatever. But all the Notre Dame fans that insisted Brian Kelly was their problem. Notre Dame's problem has been Notre Dame for 35 years. That's why they haven't won a championship since '88. They're 7-3 right now, and they got to play Wake and Stanford, so they should win both those games. So they should finish 9-3. How about an LSU Notre Dame bowl game? Right. Darian Glaze, We're going to get a good bowl game against a good team. Might see, what about an LSU Notre Dame Citrus Bowl? We're becoming the old Tennessee joke. Can't spell citrus without UT. Can't spell citrus without LSU Tigers. No, that doesn't work. Juice Williams, did you see the lineman dive through the air to land on Mason? I didn't. Somebody sent me that. A few people have mentioned that. I didn't see it. Or tell me where it was in the game. Michael Clark, what's the plan if Nuss has to play next week? Do we lean away from the run or try to find ways to get Nuss to run? How are his legs? Nuss is a good athlete, but he's not Jayden. I mean, I don't know that anybody in the country is. Maybe Jalen Milroe, just as far as a runner. But no, I mean, I think you go run your offense. You know, the concerning thing watching Nuss for those couple drives last night was how many times he threw the ball backpedaling off his back foot. That's how he tends to get himself in trouble. So, anyway. Does the NCAA review plays like the non-targeting call? It would only be if something wasn't, wasn't called. Could they go back and review something? But I mean, with the collaborative replay now, with the office in Birmingham and all, it's not going to get reviewed. I mean, LSU I'm sure will send it in and want a greater explanation, but nothing's going to happen of it. Derek Cropper, morning Matt, what's your score prediction for the Saints game? I don't know. If the Saints lose today, fire everybody. Fire them all. You have no business losing to the Bears. 0. Get Raymond to be DC. That's not going to happen, but you might be able to bring Corey Raymond back as your secondaries coach, which I would love to see. Trump tweeter. We are at least 3 to 4 years out of a natty. Yeah, that's not a smart thing to say. Last year TCU went from 500 to playing in the national championship game. I mean, I've already told you this. You go back and look at 2018 LSU. Look at Ed Ogeron's first 2 years. 2017, you get blown up by Mississippi State. You lose to Troy. 2018, you lose on the road at Florida. You get shut out at home by Alabama. Joe Burrow doesn't throw a touchdown pass in the month of October. A year later, you're the greatest team ever. I mean, it's just silly and arbitrary to say 3 to 4 years out when you're never that far out, especially in the NIL transfer portal era. I mean, you can always supplement and add to your roster and get better by a year. Taz allowing our longtime DB coach to go to Florida hurt us recruiting top cornerbacks. That's true. That's why everybody's talking about Corey Raymond. That was a huge oversight by Brian Kelly. And it wasn't like Corey Raymond chose to leave. He wanted to stay. He was never even given the option to stay. Was never interviewed or given the opportunity to stay. And that's a huge, huge oversight by Brian Kelly. That's a miss. Let's see. Neighbors, Miles Frazier, and Brian Thomas are the only ones who need to enter the draft. I think Logan Diggs will have an interest. I would love to see Logan Diggs come back. But he'll have an interesting decision to make. If you're just talking offense, you're talking offense and defense. My assumption is Mason Smith's going to go. I'm going to guess Mekhi Wingo leaves as well. Part of the reason he had surgery now allows him to get healthy in time for the combine, the pre-draft process, and everything. Savion Jones could go. I'm thinking who could. I don't know who will, but Charles Turner could take advantage of his 6th year if he wants it. And Frazier could come back next year. I mean, your entire offensive line could return. All 5 starters could return. Or you could lose all 3. You could lose Dellinger, Turner, Frazier. So, we'll see. Corey Ballas' secondary was actually okay last night. Front 7 run fits were atrocious like they've been all year. I don't understand how they just haven't improved one bit all season long. Oh, but they're good against Auburn and Army, right? Gulf South Scone. Dixon with Haney last night said Milroe's runs are basically design runs. He said Bama called passing plays, but if LSU's defense did X, Milroe was supposed to scramble and not pass. Makes sense. Giving him I guess the point is, and I'm not saying Richard's wrong. I mean, he would know, but I think the point is there's a difference between what are designed running plays and I guess the opposite of an RPO, a run, because an RPO by definition is a run call with a pass option. If you get the look you want, it's a run pass option, but it's a running play. What I guess, and I didn't hear what Richard said, but it makes sense that if you call a pass play, but if the lane is there to run, then run. But if you're calling the pass play and the guy's hoping you throw the ball. Anyway, but I get it. I mean, it's, I don't know that we're necessarily saying different things. If you go watch Bama from early in the year, they just did a lot of zone read where they were trying to get Milroe to run the football. Anyway. Dean Moore, LSU gave up 42 points without giving up a touchdown pass. It's interesting. All right, y'all. I get out of here anymore. Got to get about the day. Hope everybody's handling the time change all right. 9:39 in the morning feels a little weird, doesn't it? I guess it really hits home whenever it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it's dark. So at least the kiddos will have some light at the bus stop tomorrow morning. When I go work out, it'll be daylight. 5:30 anyway. All right. Let's see. All right. That's about it. All right, y'all. Appreciate everybody for being with us, man. Bummer of a night. Hope for a better result. Hope Jayden's all right. Brian Kelly meet with reporters on Monday. I guess we'll have to get an update on Jayden, and hope he's able to go this weekend against Florida and continue it's been a pretty awesome season, man. Hope he's able to finish it strong with 3 more games. But all right, y'all. Matt said, "Why did Whiskey and Wine cut off when T-Bob was on a roll trolling a Bama fan?" So, yeah, I'll answer that. So we have 90 minutes. So whenever the game ends, like right when the game hits the clock hits 0, is when we can start, because from the end of the game, the network does a 90-minute post-game show, which is when that 90-minute ends, then we go to Eagle 98.1 game day, post-game with Haney and Dixon. So we cover, Whiskey and Wine covers that 90 minutes. So because Eagle 98.1 game day is on the same stream, as soon as that 90 minutes is up, we're done. So the reason that was cut off right in the middle, is because we didn't know that Musso should have told us the show was ending. He should have given us like, you have 1 minute wrap up, and he didn't. And so T-Bot was talking, and we ran right through the end, and so they cut us off in studio. That's what happened. But I'll take the blame. I should have said, hey, Musso, give us a 1 minute warning or something like that, and I didn't, so I'll take the blame. All right. Y'all have an awesome day. Thanks for watching. Peace. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel.